Hey, this is Dr. J. Today we're going to do two things. We're going to put a cage in the water that has spats on it that have been grown over at the Claude Petit Mariculture Center. Those were grown by the Auburn Extension agent that works there. And we're going to put those in the water and let those grow for about 3 months. And then at the end of 3 months, we're going to put those oysters that have grown from the spat to the adult or close to being the adult in Little Lagoon to help replenish the oyster population in Little Lagoon. If you look at this right here, this is a cage for growing oysters also. But this cage is going to have shells that don't have spats on them. So what we're going to do is compare this cage, which is sterile basically, to the cages with spats growing in them already at the end of 3 months, and see how this growth on these shells that are sterile compared to the growth of the oyster shells which have spats on them in 3 months. This is an oyster shell, and a spat is like a larvae that swims around in the water and will attach it to really anything that's hard, any kind of hard substrate. But in this case we're using oyster shells, and these shells have been inoculated by spats swimming in the water and attaching to these oyster shells. We've got some close-ups to show you, then you'll see what we're talking about. You hear that seagull? He's saying war eagle. Dr. J out. I'm standing here with the cage that has the sterile oyster shells in it. We're fixing to hang it in Mobile Bay off this pier. And in a minute I'm going to hang the cage that has the shells that have the spats on them. And we'll be showing you where we're hanging them, and we're going to check them every week. Every week we will pull them up. We will check them for anything that might be in them, like crabs. And also wash them out to get out, to make sure that the algae that's growing on them won't disturb the flow of water. Okay, so I'm going to hang this one. I've already got one hanging. I'll show you how we're going to hang the other one in just a minute. Here we go. All right, we want to make sure that the oyster cage is not on the bottom. We want to make sure we get good water flow, and as I said, every week we will come take a hose and we will wash the cages off. We'll make sure there's no crabs in there. Even baby crabs can disturb the spats, so we want to make sure that they're good and clean every week as the oysters grow. So I'm tying this one off. This is one that has the sterile shells in it. Okay guys, this is the cage that has the oyster shells that have been inoculated with oyster spats. Remember, the spat is like a larvae that attaches to any hard surface, and in this case these shells have been inoculated with the oyster spat. We're going to hang them right next to the cage that's already been hung, the one with the oyster spat that's been inoculated, and we're going to hang it right next to the oyster cage that has sterile shells in it to do a comparison study. So I'm going to get this going, see if I can get this rope through there. I learned to do this in the Navy. We're going to hang it. We don't want it too close to the bottom. We want good water circulation to go around these cages. So I've got it well above a foot from the bottom. Remember, we're in Mobile Bay. Okay, now we'll come back here in about a week and we'll check the cages. We're going to check the cages that have our sterile shells in them every week to look for any kind of growth, or oyster growth. And then we'll check the cages and wash them out every week for about 3 months.